Funny thing about family. They're the ones who claim to know you best. Yet sometimes they're the first to turn the key when chaos knocks. You trust them. You let them in. You tell yourself they'd never cross a line until they do. And then suddenly, everything feels colder. The people you once thought were your shelter become the storm itself. You see, it's always the familiar faces that know where to strike. Not out of hate, no, but out of fear, jealousy, or that quiet hunger for control. They smile as they do it too, because they call it helping. Betrayal hits hardest when it wears a familiar face. It's not the stranger that breaks you. It's the one who said they'd never leave. The one who laughed with you, ate with you, stood beside you when the world felt too heavy. You never see it coming, because you don't expect the knife from the same hand that once wiped your tears. That's what makes it sting. Strangers can't betray you, they can only hurt you. Betrayal requires trust and family. Well, that's where trust lives deepest. You think blood means safety. You grow up believing that family is unbreakable, that they'd defend you no matter what. But then one day, the tone changes. The same voices that once cheered for you start to sound different. Subtle at first. A joke that cuts too deep. A secret that somehow got out. You try to brush it off. Tell yourself they didn't mean it that way. But deep down, you know, the shift has begun. The warmth in their words fades, replaced by something colder, something you can't quite name. That's the thing about betrayal from family. It doesn't start with a fight. It starts with small cracks. The kind you ignore because you want to believe it's still love. You tell yourself they're just stressed, just jealous, just confused. You keep making excuses because the alternative, that they've turned on you, is too heavy to accept. You convince yourself it's not betrayal, just misunderstanding. Until it's too late and the damage is already done. You start to see the pattern. The moments they celebrated your pain, the times they smiled when you failed, the advice that sounded like care but led you right into trouble. You remember how they'd comfort you, not because they wanted you to heal, but because they wanted to watch you break again. It's a twisted kind of loyalty. They want you close enough to control, but not strong enough to surpass them. That's when it hits you. They were never protecting you. They were protecting their position in your story. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always come with anger. Sometimes it comes with quiet realization that the people you thought would fight for you were actually the ones holding the door open for your downfall. You replay conversations, reanalyze memories, and suddenly, everything makes sense. The warning signs you ignored weren't whispers, they were sirens. You just didn't want to hear them because you loved the sound of family too much. And the cruelest part, they still act like they care. They'll hug you, smile at you, say they're worried. But there's a flicker in their eyes. That satisfaction of knowing they have power over how you feel. They won't strike when you expect it. They'll wait until you're vulnerable, until you need them. And that's when they twist the blade. Because betrayal for them isn't just about hurting you, it's about control. You start to understand that family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by loyalty, by who shows up when the room turns cold, by who defends you when you're not there to defend yourself. Some people share your DNA, but not your spirit. They don't see you as family. They see you as competition, as reflection, as a reminder of what they couldn't become. And so they sabotage you. Not because they hate you, but because they hate what you represent. You learn to stop expecting apologies. Betrayal from family rarely comes with guilt. They'll convince themselves they were right, that you deserved it, that they were just doing what was best. They rewrite the story so they can still sleep at night. Meanwhile, you're left sorting through the pieces, wondering how something sacred could shatter so easily. But deep down, you know, it didn't break suddenly. It decayed slowly, and you just didn't want to see it. There's a point when you stop seeking closure. You realize no conversation, no explanation will ever make sense of it. Because how do you explain betrayal from someone who once called you their own? You can't. You just learn to live differently. You stop trusting words and start watching actions. You stop expecting family to heal you and start healing yourself. It changes you being betrayed by someone close. You grow quieter. You stop giving everyone access to your softness. You build walls, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. You start measuring love by consistency, not titles. Because once you've been cut by someone who said they loved you, you learn that loyalty isn't spoken, it's shown. And maybe the most haunting part of all is that you still care. Even after the betrayal, part of you still wants to believe they didn't mean it, that they'll come back different. But they won't. People don't betray you by accident, they betray you by choice. And once they've crossed that line, they don't go back. You don't hate them. You just stop waiting for them to be who you thought they were. Betrayal from family doesn't destroy you immediately. It changes the way you love, the way you trust, the way you see people. You start realizing that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, and closeness doesn't guarantee honesty. And while that realization hurts, it also frees you. Because once you stop expecting purity from people who thrive in poison, you start protecting your peace more fiercely than ever before. Love can hide manipulation behind concern. It's the sweetest disguise there is. It doesn't start with control, it starts with care. The words sound gentle. The tone sounds warm. And before you know it, you're mistaking a leash for love. They say they're worried about you. They say they just want what's best, but every "I care about you" comes with a condition. Every act of kindness comes with a hook. You think they're protecting you, but what they're really doing is keeping you within reach. Emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. They'll wrap their control in affection. It's clever, really. They don't tell you what to do. They suggest. They don't forbid you, they advise. They don't demand, they worry, and you fall for it. Because who questions love? Who questions someone who says they care? You don't want to seem ungrateful or distant. So you start bending, compromising, shrinking, just to keep their love comfortable. You stop realizing that what they call care is really surveillance, that what they call guidance is just a way to make sure you never outgrow their reach. They use guilt like an artist uses color, skillfully, beautifully, effectively. After everything I've done for you, you wouldn't understand. I just care. I'm only trying to help. Those words sound harmless, but they carry poison. You start doubting your own instincts, second, guessing your decisions, apologizing for things that aren't even wrong. They teach you to associate their approval with peace and their disappointment with danger. You start living to please them, not realizing that the price of their love is your freedom. The manipulation hides behind emotion. They cry when you pull away. They get quiet when you stand up for yourself. They say you've changed when you start to grow. But that's the trick. They want you to feel guilty for evolving. They want you to believe that independence is betrayal. They want you to keep needing them, because the moment you stop needing them, they lose control. That's not love. That's ownership disguised as affection. They'll play both sides of the game, savior and victim. One moment they're rescuing you from chaos. The next they're reminding you how much they sacrificed. They make you feel like you owe them, like your happiness is built on their suffering. It's not love, it's leverage. They tie your gratitude to your obedience, and they call it family. You start confusing loyalty with submission, thinking you're honoring them by dimming yourself. But love doesn't shrink you, it expands you. Sometimes it takes years to see it. You wake up one day and realize you haven't made a single choice that wasn't filtered through someone else's expectations. You realize your life has been edited by their fears, your dreams replaced by their comfort. And when you finally resist, they panic. They call you ungrateful, distant, selfish. Because they can't stand the idea of losing the control they built under the name of love. It's not always malicious. Some people manipulate because it's all they know. They were raised on the same pattern. Control disguised as care. Guilt disguised as affection. They believe they're doing what's right. But intent doesn't erase impact. When someone uses love to control you, it still suffocates, even if they think it's protection. You start learning that not everyone who loves you understands how to love you. You begin to see how love can become a cage. A beautiful one with comfort and warmth, but a cage nonetheless. It teaches you dependence, teaches you fear of disappointing, teaches you to stay small so no one gets upset. They build the walls with affection, so you thank them for your confinement. You stop realizing you're trapped because it feels like home. But eventually, something inside you starts to stir. The quiet voice that says, "This isn't love." That's when the real war begins. The moment you try to break free, they'll make you question your sanity. They'll twist the story, say you're the problem, that you're ungrateful, that you've been influenced by others. They'll use your empathy against you because they know you still care. And you'll want to explain, to fix, to prove your intentions. But manipulation doesn't end with explanation. It ends with distance. Love, when real, never chains you. It doesn't demand that you stay small. It doesn't make you afraid to say no. But manipulated love thrives on confusion. It wants you tired, emotional, unsure of your own worth. It keeps you running in circles, apologizing just to maintain peace. And they know exactly what they're doing. Because the more uncertain you feel, the more control they have. Eventually, you stop mistaking concern for control. You start hearing the tone behind the words, seeing the pattern behind the care. You realize that the people who truly love you don't need to manage you. They trust you. They don't disguise control as protection. They give you the freedom to make mistakes, to grow, to learn. And when you find that kind of love, you finally understand how wrong the other kind was. Because love that hides manipulation isn't love at all. It's fear dressed as safety. And it feeds on the part of you that still wants to be seen as good. Even when you're the one being used. Not every family bond is built on loyalty. People like to say family is forever, but they never tell you that forever doesn't always mean faithful. Blood may connect you, but it doesn't guarantee truth. Doesn't guarantee respect, and certainly doesn't guarantee love. Some people share your last name, but not your heart. They'll stand beside you for the picture, but secretly hope you fall right after the flash. They'll toast to your success, but only because they think it should have been theirs. You start to realize that loyalty isn't inherited. It's earned, and sometimes even family fails that test. Loyalty is quiet. It doesn't boast, doesn't perform. But betrayal, oh, it's loud once it happens. You can feel it before it's spoken. The way someone's tone changes when your name comes up, the way they avoid eye contact when truth gets too close. You start catching the small betrayals first, the little leaks of your secrets, the subtle shifts in energy when you enter a room. At first, you deny it. You tell yourself you're imagining things, that family would never turn on family. But deep down, you know. You feel the fracture before you can even name it. It's funny how loyalty gets tested most when you're not around. That's when you learn who defends your name and who quietly lets it be dragged through the dirt. Some of them won't lie outright. They'll just stay silent while others do it for them. That's how betrayal often looks within a family. Not open war, but quiet consent. They'll claim they're staying out of it, but their silence is the knife. They'll tell you they didn't say anything, as if that makes them innocent, but you'll know they didn't need to. Because loyalty isn't about speaking. It's about standing. And they didn't. The most dangerous kind of betrayal doesn't come from hate. It comes from jealousy. That silent, festering envy that hides behind a smile. They'll cheer for you publicly. But behind closed doors, they'll pick apart your flaws, your choices, your wins. Must be nice, they'll say. You changed. They'll whisper. They can't celebrate you because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. They'll mask their resentment as concern, their criticism as advice. But underneath it all, it's just bitterness wearing politeness. You start realizing that loyalty has nothing to do with who shares your blood and everything to do with who shares your values. There are people out there with no relation to you who would protect you more fiercely than those who share your DNA. And that's a hard truth to swallow. Because family isn't supposed to compete with you, or use you, or measure your worth against their insecurities. But some do. They love you when you're beneath them, tolerate you when you're equal, and despise you when you rise. That's not loyalty. That's ownership. They'll call you distant when you stop giving them access. They'll say you've changed when you stop playing your old role in their story. They'll twist it until you look like the villain. Because your boundaries threaten their control, they'll gather in corners, whispering about how you've become different, not realizing that difference was survival. You didn't change out of arrogance. You changed out of exhaustion. You just stopped bleeding for people who kept calling the knife love. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with accepting that loyalty isn't guaranteed. It frees you from the illusion of obligation. You stop chasing the approval of people who were never going to be happy for you anyway. You stop explaining your choices to those who only listen to judge. You start protecting your peace, your energy, your progress, because you realize family isn't who claims you, it's who shows up when it counts. The ones who are loyal, truly loyal, don't need to be asked. They don't gossip about your pain or disappear in your chaos. They defend you when you're not in the room. They hold your truth when the world twists it. They don't compete, they support. They don't keep score, they keep faith. And you start to see the difference between those who love you for who you are and those who only loved what you gave them. It hurts, that realization. You grieve the version of family you thought you had. You look at faces you once trusted and see strangers wearing familiar features. But grief turns to clarity. You stop mistaking access for closeness. You start building your circle differently, smaller, quieter, stronger. Loyalty becomes your language, and you learn to listen for it, not assume it. You learn that family isn't sacred by default. It's sacred by choice. It's the people who stay when things get ugly, who speak your name with respect when you're not there to hear it. It's the ones who don't need to understand your path to walk beside you anyway. And those people, whether they share your blood or not, they're the real family. The rest, they were just the lesson. Reputation built on truth outlives, rumor built on noise. It's strange how quickly lies spread, isn't it? How fast a whisper can turn into a storm. How one twisted version of your story can become the truth in other people's mouths. But what's even stranger is how calm truth remains. It doesn't rush to defend itself. It doesn't panic. It just waits. Because time always reveals what talk tries to hide. The ones who build their lives on rumor might get attention for a moment, but the ones who build on truth last. Because truth, unlike gossip, doesn't need to be repeated to survive. It just is. People love noise. They love drama, chaos, exaggeration. They crave the feeling of being in the know, even when what they know is poison. They'll add words you never said, emotions you never felt, and actions you never did, all to make the story fit their fantasy. They'll spread it like wildfire because it distracts them from their own emptiness. Lies are cheap entertainment, and most people can't resist a good show. But shows end. Lies collapse. They always do. It just takes longer than you'd like. When your name becomes the topic of conversation, you learn who listens for truth and who listens for noise. Some people will ask you directly, others will assume, and a few, the rare ones, will stay silent because they know better. Those are the ones who've been lied about before. They recognize the tone of envy in someone else's accusation. They know how rumors are built, not on evidence, but on emotion. And emotion always fades. A rumor is like smoke. It clouds vision for a while, but eventually it clears, and everyone sees who started the fire. The problem is, people often panic in the smoke. They try to scream louder than the lies, to fight back, to prove themselves to people who were never interested in the truth to begin with. That's what the liars want, your reaction. Because every time you explain, you feed the rumor. Every time you defend, you confirm there's something to defend. Silence, on the other hand, terrifies them, because silence means control. Silence means you know something they don't. That truth doesn't need your help. Reputation isn't what people say about you. It's what time says about you after they've stopped talking. Let them say what they want. Let them build their stories. Eventually, patterns reveal themselves. The ones who lie do it often, to everyone. The ones who live truthfully stay consistent. People might be fooled for a while, but time never is. Time always favors truth. Because truth doesn't fade when gossip gets boring. It stands even when no one's looking. The funny thing about rumors is that they always say more about the teller than the target. When someone lies about you, they're really confessing how they think, how they feel, what they're capable of. They're projecting their insecurities onto your silence. They want to bring you down to their level because your calmness reminds them of their chaos. They don't hate you because of who you are. They hate you because of how you make them feel. Small, insecure, exposed. That's why they talk. It's not truth they're spreading. It's pain disguised as storytelling. And you, if you're wise, won't play the game. You'll let them talk while you build. You'll let them whisper while you move. Because every time you act instead of react, you remind them that their noise doesn't touch your purpose. That's what eats them alive. Not that they lied, but that their lie didn't stop you. They wanted to stain your name, but you turned your name into a brand. They wanted to destroy your peace, but you turned it into armor. That's what drives them mad, your indifference. Reputation built on truth doesn't crumble under rumor. It absorbs it, grows stronger from it. Because every accusation forces people to watch you closer. And when they do, they see your consistency, your discipline, your patience. The lie becomes your spotlight, but only if you stay still long enough for them to see the truth. You don't need to shout your innocence. You just need to live it. People eventually grow tired of noise. They crave something real. And when the dust settles, the ones who spoke lies disappear into the same silence they tried to destroy. But the ones who stood in truth remain, not because they fought harder, but because they didn't have to. Truth defends itself. Lies exhaust themselves. You just have to outlast the noise, and you will. Because noise fades. It always does. But truth echoes forever. Betrayal's just revelation in disguise. It hurts, yes, but only because it shows you something you refused to see before. You thought they were loyal. You thought they were solid. You thought they cared. But betrayal strips away the illusion. It doesn't create the monster, it reveals it. The lie was never in their action. It was in your belief that they'd never do it. And that's the part that stings. Not what they did, but how blind you were to who they really were. It's not the knife that surprises you. It's the hand that holds it. People wear masks so well that you start believing their faces. They laugh with you, cry with you, tell you you're safe with them. You build trust like a tower, brick by brick, never realizing some of those bricks were hollow. They play their part perfectly, until the moment they see something they want more than your trust. Attention, validation, control. That's when the mask slips, and you see the truth for the first time. The betrayal doesn't change them. It just unmasks them. It's funny how betrayal always comes dressed as honesty. They'll tell you they had to do it, that you deserved to know, that it was for your own good. But the truth doesn't need to stab to be spoken. The truth doesn't sneak. It doesn't whisper behind doors. It doesn't smile while cutting your name apart. Betrayal is never about truth. It's about control. It's about someone deciding your trust is worth less than their ego. They don't think of the damage. They think of the moment. The thrill of being powerful, even if it's through destruction. When it happens, your world tilts. You replay conversations. Try to find the signs you missed. The little jokes that suddenly feel sharp, the small glances that now look calculated. You start to realize the betrayal didn't happen in one moment. It was built over time, piece by piece. While you were too loyal to notice, you call it betrayal, but it's really revelation. Because for the first time, you see them without filters. You see their envy, their insecurity, their hunger for validation. You see how long they've been waiting for your fall. And yet, as painful as it is, there's something freeing about it. You stop pretending. You stop making excuses for people who wouldn't make the same for you. You stop defending those who secretly hoped you'd fail. Betrayal burns, but it also clears. It removes the false, the fragile, the convenient. It's a violent form of honesty, but honesty nonetheless. It shows you who deserves access and who deserves distance. You begin to understand that loyalty isn't proven in calm. It's tested in chaos. Anyone can smile with you when you're winning. But watch who disappears when you fall. Watch who laughs when the rumors start. Watch who stays silent when your name is under fire. That silence speaks louder than any knife. Because betrayal isn't always an act. Sometimes it's an absence. The absence of defense, of presence, of care. People think betrayal is the end. But it's really the beginning of understanding. Once you've been betrayed, you start seeing patterns faster. You read energy instead of words. You stop mistaking charm for character. You stop assuming love means loyalty. You stop giving blind trust to anyone who claims closeness. You learn that real loyalty doesn't need proof. It shows up without being asked. You stop expecting everyone to match your heart. And that's where revelation becomes power. Because once you know who someone really is, they can't fool you again. The betrayal loses its sting and becomes your armor. You no longer fear loss because you've already survived it. You no longer fear lies because you've already seen how truth survives them. You no longer need apologies from those who broke you. Their silence says enough. The ones who betray you will eventually betray someone else. It's not personal. It's their nature. And people like that always end up alone, surrounded by the same emptiness they tried to give you. You, however, will move differently, softer, wiser, calmer. You won't carry anger, just awareness. You won't chase revenge, just distance. Because betrayal may cut deep, but it also carves clarity. So when it happens, when the knife finds its way into your back, don't curse the pain too quickly. That pain is teaching you something. Who was real? Who was pretending? And most importantly, who you'll never need again. Because betrayal isn't destruction. It's revelation wearing a cruel disguise. It's life showing you who can't go with you to the next chapter, no matter how familiar their face looks on the cover.